Story 1. Having to pay for vision and dental insurance in addition to health insurance. Last time I checked, your eyeballs and teeth were part of your body and should be considered under medical insurance. Story 2. The fact that we will tell in detail a rape story, murder, crash, or what have you on the news, and even put photos of the horrible scene, but will censor words like fuck and shit from the headline. Story 3. Requiring people in service positions to be uncomfortable for the sake of the customer experience. For example, requiring cashiers to stand for a solid 8 hours when a seat wouldn't disrupt their ability to do their job. Not allowing stockers to have a bottle of water with them on the sales floor. Not allowing someone to wear shorts during the summer or a jacket during the winter because it isn't in the dress code. Story 4. The amount of plastic we use is absolutely insane. And then companies say they are reducing waste but actually make more plastic, claiming they are saving the planet. Story 5. The things people do during bachelor and bachelorette parties. It's always been bizarre to me how many people see it as their last night of freedom and indulge in sexual desires. Like, have you not been dating this person for years, most likely at this point? You haven't been single in a while, and if you need to get one last taste of sexual freedom the night before your wedding, maybe you shouldn't be getting married. Obviously, I know every relationship has different standards and rules, but I've met lots of guys who say you have to go to a strip club for your bachelor party. Like it's just what guys do. Women have their own things they do as well, male strippers and whatnot. It's just messed up to me, but I feel like it's becoming less common nowadays. Story 6. Getting cosmetic surgeries. I don't want to blame or shame any individuals who do it, because we live in a harsh society with crazy beauty standards. But when you think about it objectively, it's kind of scary. Story 7. In general, victim blaming occurs instead of blaming the bully, the rapist, or the evildoer. Corporate management tactics for cost saving can harm your mental health, making your life unpleasant just to force you to resign while, in the meantime, destroying your health. Also, harshly judging people who stand up against it. If you go to a lawyer for being managed out, likely you will be judged by society and not the management who broke the law. Story 8. Having to specify your race or ethnicity on any kind of survey or application. Why is it necessary? Having citizenship and the right to work in the country is all they need to see. Story 9. Everything. Overconsumption, fast fashion, landfills, recycling is ineffective. In Canada it sure is. Politics, police officers murdering whoever they want, shaming people for feeling and expressing emotions, toxic grind culture, generational trauma, people not being able to afford food or healthcare, cities built around highways and cars being a necessity to travel within your own city, watching terrorism and genocide happen in real time and no one says anything. Story 10. One thing that comes to mind is how normal it is for people to glorify overworking or the hustle culture. People brag about working long hours, sacrificing sleep, and neglecting their mental and physical health for the sake of success. While ambition is important, the idea that you have to burn yourself out just to prove your worth or achieve success is pretty messed up when you think about it. Balance is key, but it's often seen as laziness if you're not constantly grinding. Story 11. I think the idea that it is normal for people to go into significant debt for higher education is a little messed up. I mean, higher education should be accessible, not a financial burden. Story 12. Weddings, a woman spends all this money on a dress that she is only ever going to wear once, whereas many men rent everything except for the socks and underwear. Story 13. The way people push working long hours as a badge of honor is pretty messed up. There's no shame in prioritizing rest and balance over burnout. It's something I've come to realize as I've entered the working world. Story 14. The election process in the United States is like a circus plus some gladiatorial confrontation. I guess I can't put my finger on the core of the problem. It just seems odd. Story 15. How our society isn't a meritocracy. There are so many genuinely talented people out there who get the short end of the stick just because they don't want to flatter someone endlessly. Meanwhile, the arrogant talkers get all the rewards when they don't actually have the skills for the job. Yes, we're a social species, but there's a big difference between socializing and stroking someone's ego. As normal as it is, I think it's messed up how interviews are conducted less on the basis of actual skills, and more on the basis of, oh, I like you as a person so I'll hire you. Story 16. The person who grows the food doesn't get a tip. The person who picks the food doesn't get a tip. The person who drives the food to the restaurant doesn't get a tip. The person who preps the food doesn't get a tip. The person who cooks the food doesn't get a tip. The person who cleans the plates doesn't get a tip. The person who walks the food from the kitchen to your table gets upset if you leave less than a 40% tip. It started out as a bribe to the staff to get better service. Story 17. Custody battles for children during a divorce. I get it. Some people are awful and shouldn't be parents. But the current system incentivizes criticizing the other parent to get more custody and more child support. Story 18. Little kids on devices in stores and restaurants. Huge missed opportunity to teach new words. Since vocabulary is a huge indicator of reading comprehension, they are basically stunting their children. Signed, teachers everywhere. Story 19. Expecting people to choose a single job that they are supposed to be passionate about and do for the rest of their life right after they graduate from high school is unrealistic. It's like saying, "Hey kid," who has barely even started experiencing the real world yet. I hope you know exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life until you're too old to work. Story 20. How about the normalization of overworking? In many cultures, being busy is worn like a badge of honor, but it often leads to burnout and neglect of personal well-being. It's like we celebrate the hustle while ignoring the toll it takes on mental and physical health. Story 21. Circumcising. It is weird, it is outdated, and I think that people should have a choice in it if they are having their foreskin or clitoris cut off. There is just no good reason to do it, especially because it is really invasive and irreversible. Story 22. Might get killed on this one, laugh out loud, but in New York City and Long Island, honestly watching all these politicians being wrapped up in nefarious and corrupt matters, all in cahoots with each other. And then there's us, abiding by the law, busting our humps 5 days a week at work, most living paycheck to paycheck, trying to survive, paying for our houses, exorbitant property taxes, and everything else we legitimately pay for. Story 23. I've come across far too many people online boasting about how many hours they work and how much money they make. I just reply with, "Great. I bet your family loves you for that. How often do you see them?" Story 24. The requirement for every club or charity that donates items is to flood the media with as many photos as possible about how great they are. Look at me, not giving to give, but giving to be seen giving. Total creeps. Story 25. Drinking. We banned all drugs, ranging from marijuana to crack and heroin, but not alcohol because of the excise taxes the government collects. However, the effects are similar in both addiction and intoxication departments. Story 26. Parents kissing their children on the mouth, even when the kids become adults, makes me so uncomfortable. I grew up in a very affectionate household with lots of hugs and cuddles, but we only kissed each other on the cheek. Story 27. Kids with phones. I rode a bus where there was a 10-year-old kid who now owns a phone and a literal toddler using his mom's phone. I wondered, whoa, they're too young to use those. I do think this is an old-fashioned thought, but letting kids be glued to their phones at such a young age is kind of messed up. Story 28. The idea that teens and children shouldn't have feelings, opinions, or autonomy in lives outside their parents drives me crazy. Children and teens are humans too. They have rights and wants and should be allowed to say. Story 29. Credit scores and credit card companies. They just profit off people and ruin lives. Even for people who use credit cards responsibly, there's really no great benefit. Credit card companies charge businesses fees for their use, and those fees get passed to the consumers whether we know it or not. Story 30. Not punishing children. I am not saying parents should be allowed to smack their kids or anything like that. No, I am just constantly dismayed that bullies are allowed to get away with it with little to no recourse. Teachers can see it happening, but there is nothing they can do. Similarly, if a group of teenagers is harassing a member of the public, there is pretty much nothing the police can do. Story 31. Religion has such a grip on the running of many schools. I also hope the societal pressure to get married reduces over the coming years, and more people can be objective and do it for the right reasons rather than appeasing others. The same goes for having kids, really. I still feel we are indoctrinated to live life a certain way with key milestones attached. Story 32. Worship of military and police. Yes, some of them are heroes, but most are just doing a job they signed up for and get paid for. I feel doctors, nurses, emergency medical technicians, and teachers need more recognition. Story 33. Politicians having Twitter and Instagram and saying random things that show they're an idiot. Somebody posted something where someone says, they can control the weather. They're lying to you. Like someone was pressing the hurricane button. Category 1. Enhance. Category 2. Enhance. Story 34. Anime often features some unsettling tropes, but many enthusiasts come forward to defend certain series and overlook the problematic elements that are barely acceptable socially. These can include borderline pedophilia, strange major age gap portrayals, and instances of sexual violence, among others. The top-rated anime currently had a 1.5-hour premiere episode, and it included a full 2.5-minute song about young girls having an attraction to older men, claiming it was entirely normal and not creepy at all. Notably, this was not part of the original book it's adapted from, but the creative team chose to add it. Story 35. Funerals. The whole process. We take a dead body, drain the fluids out of it, pump it full of another fluid so it looks alive again, and then we dress it up and put makeup on it. Then we purchase an elaborate, expensive box to display it in so that everyone can come up and stare at it for a few seconds. Then we throw the whole thing into the ground and bury it. Story 36. Only normal in the United States. Paying astronomical amounts for the privilege of having health insurance, which may or may not cover everything you need, paying a large fee on top of that, for which there are exclusions before the policy covers any of your visits, and then being billed some wild bill you pray you're able to cover. Oh, and this privilege of obtaining decent health insurance is usually tied to being a full-time employee at an employer willing to be generous enough to offer benefits. Best case scenario is that you never get ill, acute or chronic. Otherwise, there will be even more hoops to jump through to ensure some level of coverage, after which the insurance can flippantly and incorrectly deny. Rinse and repeat for dental, mental, vision, and other insurance. While we're at it, near zero worker protections for the majority of working folks. Story 37. Bodybuilding. I know quite a few bodybuilders, and they all obsess over their appearance and go to the gym for a pump at least 7 times a day. When they don't see the pump, they feel too small. People overlook this because of the discipline that goes into it. No one notices they are never satisfied with how they look. Story 38. Working hard to make somebody else money while not getting much in return outside of pizza parties and cost of living raises. Sure, you can change jobs, but once you do it enough, prospective employers will notice at some point and may pass over you. If you have a marketable skill and can learn how to operate a business, you'll have more freedom. I've been self-employed in a rather niche specialty since the pandemic. It would take a lot for me to work for somebody else again. I get more time with my family, can take them traveling on short notice with my customers, and life is much better. Health insurance is more costly, but the freedom and earnings more than offset that. Story 39. Requiring a college degree, any college degree, to apply. It would be one thing to need something specific to the line of work, like a bachelor's in business or a bachelor's in child development, but when the job does not require specific education, it becomes a litmus test for wealth. Can you afford college? Ironically, they don't care if you take on a massive amount of debt getting your degree. All they care about is being able to check off that box in your application. Story 40. The retirement homes people put their elderly parents in, specifically in the United States. I understand it's difficult because the United States doesn't provide us with livable wages and our jobs consume our lives. But some of those nurses working in those places are awful. Story 41. Constant negativity, both online and in real life. I'm astounded by how many people keep themselves in a constant state of self-imposed negativity. It feels like engagement bait and rage bait are starting to seep into real life and turn people into jaded individuals. Story 42. Nuclear families. I was raised by my parents and both sets of grandparents, and also some aunts, uncles, and family friends. I don't know how 2 adults can rear children in this day and age without help. Takes a village. Story 43. How a working parent has fewer funded hours for her 2-year-old who needs childcare so she can work and provide for her child, and instead gives most of her wages for that said childcare, but an unemployed parent will get fully funded hours for childcare. Story 44. Being forced to be nice to rude customers. Sorry, but if you don't understand the words sold out, even for the fifth time, you're an absolute idiot and you should know it. Calling me a rude name for not breaking the rules won't make me do it. And it only results in me wanting to tell you to go away. It's not my fault that you didn't realize a travel guide with a photo of the Eiffel Tower and the name Paris wouldn't be about Rome. Why would you even think that? These are just a few examples of when the glorification of customers is messed up and when sarcasm and honesty should be allowed.